Hey everybody, welcome back to an all-new episode of True Crimes with me, Kayla. Today we're going to be talking about the case of Amy Lynn Bradley. But before we dive in, I just want to give my usual disclaimer. I mean absolutely no disrespect to anyone mentioned in this video. All of the information has been gathered from publicly available sources online and is being compiled into one video. So let's get into it. Amy Lynn Bradley was 23 years old when she vanished. An athletic young woman who had graduated from Longwood College with a physical education degree. She was living in her own apartment in Chesterfield, Virginia, planning to get a master's in sports psychology before becoming a teacher. On March 21st, 1998, Amy, her parents Ivor and Ron, and her younger brother Brad left for what should have been a relaxing Caribbean cruise aboard the Rhapsody of the Seas, a massive vessel that could hold 2,500 passengers. Ron had received the trip as a performance reward from his workplace, Illinois Mutual Life Assurance. Interestingly, Amy wasn't exactly thrilled about going on this cruise. She was apprehensive but never explained why. She wasn't a big fan of the ocean despite being an excellent swimmer. Nevertheless, the Bradley family boarded the ship in Puerto Rico, ready for their Caribbean adventure. On the morning of March 23rd, the ship dropped anchor in Aruba. The family spent the day exploring the island and returned to the ship that evening for a big party happening on board. Around 1 a.m, the ship disembarked for Curacao. Ivor and Ron headed back to their cabin to sleep, while Amy and Brad stayed to enjoy the party with the ship's house band, Blue Orchid. Brad eventually decided he'd had enough and went back to their shared cabin. Amy joined him about 15 minutes later, but instead of going to bed, she stepped out onto their balcony. Brad went to sleep, leaving Amy sitting outside. At approximately 5:30 a.m, Ron woke up because the ship would soon be docking in Curacao. He checked on his children and found Amy asleep on a deck chair on the balcony. He noticed her cigarette pack beside her and that the sliding door to the cabin was closed. Seeing nothing wrong, Ron went back to his own cabin and returned to sleep for another 20 minutes. When he woke again and checked once more, Amy was gone. The cigarettes were missing too, and the sliding door was now open. Ron wasn't immediately worried. None of Amy's shoes were missing from the cabin, which led him to think she'd just gone for a quick snack or drink from a vending machine. When she didn't return after a while, Ron went searching the ship's deck. After an hour with no sign of her, panic set in. Ron alerted the rest of the family and then the ship's officers. By this point, the massive vessel had docked at Curacao, and here's where a crucial mistake happened. The family begged the crew not to let passengers disembark until everyone was accounted for. They wanted the gangplank kept up while they searched for Amy. The captain agreed to search the ship, but, critically, still allowed passengers to disembark. He opened the gangplank and let everybody off the ship. This decision would prove to be a major complication in finding Amy. After supposedly searching the nearly 1,000-foot ship for 12 hours, the captain claimed they found nothing. He suggested Amy might have fallen overboard during the night. The family immediately rejected this theory. Amy was afraid of heights and didn't like being close to the railings. Others floated the idea of suicide, which the family also dismissed completely. Amy had a great life ahead of her and was happy with her plans for the future. So what could have happened? Did she somehow leave the ship at Curacao? The family stepped off the vessel to search for her in port, knowing they had just 4 hours before the ship was scheduled to depart. They contacted the FBI but were told it would take 24 hours for agents to arrive. Heartbreakingly, the Bradleys watched from the dock as the Rhapsody of the Seas sailed away without them. When the FBI finally connected with the family in Curacao, they delivered disturbing news. The ship's search hadn't been thorough enough. Together with FBI agents, the family rushed to St. Thomas, the Rhapsody's next scheduled stop. On March 26th, the FBI conducted what they called a bomb search of the ship, methodically examining every space on board. They also distributed flyers to other passengers. This effort produced the first significant lead when 2 women came forward with information that would change the direction of the investigation. These witnesses claimed they had seen Amy around 5:45 a.m. after Ron had initially spotted her on the balcony, heading to the ship's dance club with the Blue Orchid's bass player, Alistair Douglas. Brad had seen Amy dancing with Douglas earlier that night. Even more suspicious, on the morning she disappeared while the family was still searching the ship, Douglas had approached Brad and said, "Hey man, sorry about your sister." This was bizarre because at that time only the family, the captain and his security team knew she was missing. How did this band member already know something had happened to Amy? The FBI brought Douglas in for questioning. Faced with investigators, he changed his story completely, now claiming he knew nothing about Amy whatsoever. Despite intensive interrogation, they couldn't extract any useful information from him. The investigation took another disturbing turn when the FBI discovered that photos of Amy taken by the ship's photographers had mysteriously vanished about 10 hours before she disappeared. Cruise ships typically employ photographers who snap pictures of passengers throughout the voyage, later offering them for sale. Strangely, only Amy's photos were missing, not those of other passengers. This peculiar detail fueled theories that Amy might have been targeted by human traffickers. Had someone stolen her photos to show her to prospective buyers? Was she being evaluated as a potential victim before being abducted? No one on the ship was ever charged in connection with her disappearance. The distraught family returned home and launched a nationwide campaign to find Amy. They offered a $200,000 reward for information about her whereabouts. On April 21st, about a month after she vanished, the Bradleys returned to Curacao and distributed flyers across the island. Within 24 hours, a taxi driver contacted them with a potential lead. He claimed he had seen Amy on the morning she disappeared, frantically approaching him when passengers were disembarking from the ship, asking desperately for a telephone. He specifically remembered her striking green eyes. The family searched the entire island but found no further trace of her. During this search, Brad experienced a strange moment when he thought he heard Amy's voice coming from a passing van. The family chased after the vehicle, but it contained only a single male driver. Was this a case of mistaken identity, or had they just missed finding her? In May 1999, over a year after Amy's disappearance, a Canadian tourist named David Carmichael contacted the family after watching an episode of America's Most Wanted featuring Amy's case. Carmichael reported that while vacationing in Curacao 5 months after she vanished, he saw a woman on the beach who matched Amy's description perfectly. What made his account particularly credible was his detailed description of the woman's tattoos, which matched Amy's exactly. A Tasmanian devil spinning basketball on her shoulder, a sun on her lower back, a Chinese symbol on her right ankle, and a gecko-like lizard on her navel. According to Carmichael, the woman was walking along the beach trailing behind 2 men, one black and one white. Carmichael described a chilling interaction. When the woman heard him speaking English to his friend, she turned around, stared at him intently, and began walking toward them as if she wanted to speak. Before she could say anything, the black man stepped between them and motioned her away. Carmichael noted that she immediately looked down and turned away. Before Carmichael left, the man turned and gave him what he described as a threatening, leave her alone type of glare. Later, when shown photographs, Carmichael believed one of the men with the woman strongly resembled Alistair Douglas, the bass player from the cruise ship. This sighting convinced the Bradleys that Amy had been kidnapped. 3 months later, a private investigator named Frank Jones approached them with information that seemed to confirm their worst fears. Jones presented himself as a former Special Forces operative who specialised in rescuing victims of human trafficking. He claimed Amy was being held against her will by traffickers operating in the Caribbean. According to Jones, rescue operations required substantial funding, tens of thousands of dollars. The desperate family, willing to do anything to bring their daughter home, began working with him. Over the next year, Jones sent the Bradleys photographs, allegedly showing Amy. On September 22nd, he claimed to have gathered enough intelligence to execute a rescue mission, but needed an additional $100,000. Ron Bradley borrowed the money from his boss, who wanted to verify Jones was legitimate before transferring such a large sum. In November, Ron's boss sent a trusted security contractor named Tim Buchholz to Curacao to monitor Jones. After a few days, Buchholz delivered devastating news. Frank Jones was spending their money on personal entertainment and had no actual information about Amy. The photographs he had provided were fake. Jones was a con artist who had extracted over $200,000 from the family. He was later arrested, sentenced to 5 years in prison, and ordered to repay the money, though the emotional damage to the Bradleys was incalculable. Despite this crushing setback, reports of Amy sightings continued. In 2001, a US Navy sailor named William Hefner came forward with a disturbing account. Hefner stated that in January 1999, while his ship was docked in Curacao, he visited a local brothel that was officially off limits to Navy personnel. He claimed he was only there to have a drink. According to Hefner, while sitting at the bar, he started chatting with 2 men who were with 2 women he assumed were sex workers. After one pair went upstairs, the other man stepped away briefly, leaving Hefner alone with the remaining woman. It was then that she allegedly grabbed his arm and urgently told him, "I'm in trouble. They've got my papers and I can't leave the island." Hefner said the woman identified herself as Amy Bradley, though he thought she pronounced it with a T rather than a D. She begged him not to forget her name. Hefner suggested if she was an American citizen, she should go to the US Navy ship in port and ask for help. Before she could respond, the man returned and she immediately fell silent. Hefner claimed he forgot about this encounter until years later, when he saw Amy's photograph in People magazine and recognised her as the woman from the brothel. By the time investigators followed up, the brothel had reportedly burned down, eliminating any possibility of finding evidence there. Some skeptics have questioned Hefner's account. He reported that the woman said they had her papers, but Amy's passport and identification remained in her cabin on the cruise ship when she disappeared. She didn't have any papers that could have been taken. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence emerged in 2005 when a photograph was sent to the Bradley family by an organisation that monitors adult websites for potential trafficking victims. The image showed a woman advertised as an escort under the name Jazz. Several forensic experts analysed the woman's facial features and noted striking similarities to Amy. One expert was so confident in the match that he stated he would bet his career on it. The Bradleys themselves were convinced the woman in the photograph was their daughter. Investigators attempted to trace the website's origin, but were unsuccessful. The digital trail had been carefully covered by whoever was running the operation. That same year, another potential witness came forward. Judy Moore and her husband were vacationing in Barbados when Judy entered a department store bathroom. While in a stall, she overheard men discussing what sounded like some kind of transaction. "The deal's at 11 o'clock and he better be ready to go. You better cooperate. You better not mess this up." After the men left, Moore encountered a frightened woman by the sinks. The woman allegedly told Moore she was from Virginia and that her name was Amy. As she began to approach Moore, the men returned and the woman appeared terrified. Moore left the bathroom and observed 4 men waiting outside. Months later, when she saw photographs of Amy Bradley, Moore was convinced it was the same woman she had encountered. Unfortunately, by the time detectives investigated this lead, the trail had gone cold. No security footage could be recovered and no witnesses could corroborate Moore's account. If Amy is still alive, she would be in her late 40s today. Some investigators remain skeptical about some of the reported sightings. Could these women have simply resembled Amy? Might they have been using her identity? Some have speculated that women trapped in trafficking situations might use the identity of a known missing American, believing it would increase their chances of rescue compared to women from poorer countries or less publicised cases. The mystery of what happened to Amy Lynn Bradley in those early morning hours of March 23, 1998 remains unsolved. Did she leave the ship voluntarily or under coercion? Was she the victim of foul play aboard the vessel? Was she trafficked through the Caribbean as the various sightings suggest? Her family has never given up hope of finding answers. The case continues to haunt those familiar with it. A young woman with her whole life ahead of her vanishes without a trace from a cruise ship, only to potentially resurface in disturbing circumstances that suggest a fate few would wish on anyone. If you have any information relating to the disappearance or whereabouts of Amy Lynn Bradley, please contact the FBI. Alternatively, you can leave an anonymous tip online. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more. That's all from me today. Have a lovely day and I'll see you next time. Bye.